Welcome to my channel. Subscribe so you don't miss a video. Enjoy your viewing. I was 16 when I met her, Kara. She was this perfect, wild kind of girl, full of life and dreams. We were inseparable. I could tell her anything, and she'd listen like it was the most important thing in the world. I thought we'd grow old together. She had this way of making everything seem lighter, easier, like nothing could touch us, even the storms in our lives. But, as it happens in life, things don't always go as planned. One summer evening, I got the call. The kind of call that doesn't make sense at first, like your brain refuses to accept it. Kara was in an accident. She didn't make it. I won't go into the details. I just remember feeling like the world stopped turning. The day felt cold, even though it was summer, and I couldn't understand how something so unfair could happen. We were supposed to be forever. But I guess forever is a lot shorter than we think. After she was gone, it felt like I was walking through a fog. I didn't really know who I was without her. But life kept moving, and so did I, eventually. Fast forward a few years, and life was different. I wasn't expecting anything serious again. I didn't think I could handle another loss, but then I met Emily. She was smart, beautiful, but there was this sadness in her eyes that I couldn't ignore. She didn't quite fit in with the world around her, always a little offbeat, like she was constantly battling against something invisible. We started talking. At first, it was just casual. I noticed she struggled with her academics, but I didn't think much of it. Everyone has their thing, right? But as I got to know her more, I learned about the darker side of her life. Emily had learning disabilities, and her family, well, they weren't exactly supportive. In fact, they were brutal. I found out that they'd belittle her over her grades, make her feel worthless, tell her she'd never be good enough. It crushed me to see her like that. But over time, I started helping her. I'd stay up late, explaining things over and over, just trying to make her feel like she wasn't broken. We both had our scars, but somehow, we found comfort in each other. We healed together, or so I thought. For a while, things felt like they were getting better. Emily's confidence grew, and I could see her starting to believe in herself. She started getting better grades, and we laughed together like I hadn't laughed in years. For the first time since Kara, I thought maybe I could have a future with someone again. But life, as always, has a way of throwing curveballs. Emily's family didn't change. They kept pushing her down, telling her she was a failure, that she'd never amount to anything. I couldn't understand how anyone could be so cruel to someone so sweet. She'd try to brush it off, but I saw it. The cracks were forming again. The same sadness was creeping back into her eyes. I'd remind her that she was more than her grades, that she had value, but it wasn't enough. No matter how much I reassured her, no matter how much we worked together, those voices from her family still echoed in her mind, drowning out everything good I tried to offer. Then came the first failure. She had been working so hard on a project for months, and when the grade came back, it was devastating. A low mark, despite all her effort. She took it hard, too hard. She locked herself in her room for hours, and I couldn't reach her. She was spiraling, and there was nothing I could do to pull her out of it. I knew she was struggling, but I didn't know how deep it went. I kept telling myself, she'll be okay. She's strong. We'll get through this. But in the back of my mind, a voice told me that maybe I was fooling myself. It was only a few weeks after that first failure when it happened. Another one. This time it wasn't just a grade, it was a relationship. Emily had put her trust in someone from her family, someone she thought would help her, but instead, she was let down again. This time, the betrayal hit harder than before. I watched her unravel. I could feel her pulling away from me, the same way she had from everyone else in her life. The walls went up. She wouldn't talk to me. She wouldn't look at me. It was like we were strangers, and it hurt in a way I couldn't explain. I tried everything I could think of, texts, phone calls, showing up at her house, but nothing worked. Then came the night that changed everything. I was sitting on my couch, watching TV, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it. I can't do this anymore. That's all it said. I tried calling, but she didn't pick up. I tried again, then again. Nothing. The silence was unbearable. I knew she was struggling, but I had no idea she was this deep into it. I thought maybe if I just gave her space, she'd come around. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, a bad moment. But deep down, I had this terrible feeling. Something told me that things weren't going to get better. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept staring at my phone, hoping for a reply. But it never came. The days that followed felt like a blur. I tried to reach Emily, but she wouldn't respond. Every message, every call, seemed to sink into this void, unanswered. It was like she had vanished, leaving me with nothing but the echo of her words. I can't do this anymore. It was around midnight when I got another text. My heart raced as I opened it, praying she had finally reached out, that maybe we could talk, maybe fix this. But when I read the message, my stomach dropped. It wasn't from her. It was from her brother. She's gone. We found her. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. Those words hit harder than any failure, any betrayal. Emily was gone. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the screen. It didn't feel real. I kept expecting to wake up, to hear her laugh or feel her hand in mine. But no, this was it. The silence was deafening. I rushed to her place, but it was too late. I couldn't stop myself from asking questions I knew I couldn't answer. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I know? I blamed myself, of course. There was a part of me that always believed I could fix everything, that if I just tried hard enough, I could save her. But I couldn't. And the weight of that failure crushed me. When I stood there, looking at her empty room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had failed her in the worst possible way. I had failed Kara, and now I had failed Emily. How could I let this happen twice? The days after Emily's death were a blur. I didn't know what to do with myself. The grief was consuming, but it wasn't just the loss of her that hit me, it was the feeling of helplessness. The weight of knowing I couldn't save her, couldn't fix what was broken inside of her, felt like a constant pressure on my chest. I didn't go to work for a while. I didn't want to talk to anyone. Friends, family, they all tried to reach out, but I didn't know what to say. What do you even say in the face of something like this? How could I explain that I was still reeling from the loss of someone I loved? How could I tell them that I'd let her slip away even though I promised myself I wouldn't? I spent a lot of time thinking about her last moments. I kept replaying every conversation we'd ever had, every moment we'd shared. Had I missed something? Was there a sign I didn't catch? I kept asking myself why I didn't see how bad things were. I told myself I wasn't enough for her, that maybe if I'd done more, if I'd been stronger, she'd still be here. The guilt was overwhelming, and the sadness, man, it was like I was drowning in it. I wanted to scream at the world for being so unfair, for taking another person I loved. I didn't understand how life could be so cruel, how everything could be going fine one minute, and then it's all ripped away from you the next. I tried to keep it together, but inside, I was falling apart. I deleted my story about Emily. It felt like a betrayal, keeping it around. What good was it to hold on to something that couldn't be fixed, that was already lost? But that didn't make the pain go away. It didn't make the questions stop. It's strange, isn't it? How you can be surrounded by people, yet feel completely alone. I kept going through the motions, pretending like I had it together. I went back to work, tried to engage with friends, but all of it felt like I was just pretending to be someone else. The world kept moving forward, and I felt like I was stuck in this loop of grief, guilt, and confusion. The truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore. I used to be the guy who could fix things, who could help people through their darkest moments. But I couldn't help Emily. I couldn't stop her from hurting, and I couldn't bring her back. I stayed in my apartment a lot, looking through old pictures, trying to make sense of everything. I thought back to the good times, the moments when she smiled, when she told me she was happy. I convinced myself those moments had been real, that maybe, just maybe, we made a difference in each other's lives. But then the questions would come again. Did I do enough? Was there more I could have done? I thought about her family and how they treated her. I thought about all the things they never said, all the hurtful things they'd put her through. I hated them for it, but I hated myself just as much for not being able to stop it. I felt like I was losing everything. First Kara, now Emily. What was the point of trying if everything I loved was just going to disappear? I didn't know where to go from there. The pain of losing her was still too fresh, too real. But somehow, I knew I had to keep moving. For me. For the future. Eventually, I realized something. I couldn't stay stuck in the past forever. I had to find a way to move forward, even though it felt like the hardest thing I'd ever do. It wasn't about forgetting Emily, or Kara for that matter, it was about learning how to live with the pain, how to live in a world without them. I started going to therapy. I wasn't sure at first if it would help, but it did. I had to confront the fact that I wasn't the cause of their pain. I wasn't the reason they'd suffered. I had my own demons to face, my own issues to work through, but at least I was starting to understand that I couldn't carry their pain with me forever. It was a long, slow process. There were days when I felt like I was taking 2 steps forward, only to be knocked back by a single memory. But those memories, the good and the bad, started to feel a little less heavy. I wasn't forgetting them, I was just learning to live with their absence. I also started working on myself. I went back to school. I got into a new project at work. Little by little, I began to piece together some semblance of a life that didn't revolve around grief. It didn't mean I stopped loving Emily or Kara, it just meant I was learning to love myself again, and that was something I hadn't done in a long time. But even with all the progress, I knew there would always be a part of me that missed them. There would always be a part of me that wondered what could have been if I'd been able to save them. But I also knew that there was no point in beating myself up anymore. Life is unfair, and sometimes, people slip away, no matter how hard you try to hold on. As time passed, the memories of Emily and Kara didn't fade, but they became more manageable. I could talk about them without breaking down. I could think about the good times without being consumed by the weight of their loss. But the pain still lingered, like a scar that never fully healed. It's a weird thing, grief, it doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't make sense. One minute, you think you're fine, and the next, something reminds you of them, and you're right back in that dark place. But I learned something important during this time. I learned that it was okay to feel that pain. It wasn't a weakness. It was proof that I had loved deeply. And as much as I wished I could change the past, I knew I couldn't. What I could do was carry their memory with me, not as a weight, but as a part of who I am. I also realized something else. We all have our battles, our hidden struggles. I never fully understood what Emily was going through, her depression, her family's mistreatment, her sense of inadequacy. I thought I was helping her, that my love was enough. But I didn't see how much she was suffering until it was too late. It's easy to think we know everything, to think we can fix things, but sometimes, we can't. Sometimes, the best we can do is just be there, listen, and show that we care, even if that's not enough to change the outcome. But I also learned that I couldn't save everyone. As much as I wanted to be her hero, I couldn't fight her battles for her. And that realization hurt more than I can put into words. But it also freed me, in a way. I stopped blaming myself for everything I couldn't control. The hardest part, I think, was learning how to let go. Not just of Emily or Kara, but of the guilt. It felt impossible at first, like I was giving up on them, on the love we shared. But the truth was, I wasn't holding on to them, I was holding on to the idea that I could have done more, that I could have saved them. And that was a burden I didn't need to carry anymore. One day, I found myself sitting in a park, just thinking. The wind was blowing through the trees, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. Not because I had all the answers or because the pain was gone, but because I realized that I had to live for myself, too. I had to find a way to heal, even if that meant letting go of some of the guilt and regret that had been holding me down. I took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to forgive myself. I wasn't perfect. I couldn't fix everything. But I had tried my best, and sometimes, that's all we can do. Life doesn't always work out the way we want it to, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. I thought about Emily, about Kara, and I promised them both that I wouldn't let their deaths define me. They were a part of my past, but they didn't have to control my future. After everything that happened, it felt like I was standing at the edge of something new, but I wasn't sure what that something was. I didn't have it all figured out, and honestly, I wasn't even looking for a fresh start. But life has a way of offering you new opportunities when you least expect it. I started meeting new people, just friends at first. I wasn't looking for love again. I didn't think I could ever love anyone the way I had loved Emily. But I didn't shut myself off from the possibility either. I just needed time. Time to heal, time to find out who I was without her, without all the pain. One day, I met someone at work. Her name was Sophie. She wasn't like Emily or Kara, she wasn't broken. She wasn't someone I had to save. But she was kind. She had a quiet strength about her that I admired. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't even romantic at first. But we talked. We became friends. And little by little, I started to enjoy her company. I still thought about Emily and Kara every day. That never went away. But I realized that it didn't have to stop me from living my life. I could honor their memory without being trapped by it. Sophie didn't ask me to forget them. She didn't need me to. She understood that sometimes people come with a past, and that past shapes who we are. I didn't know where things were going with Sophie, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. Not because I had all the answers, but because I was learning to let go of the pain and embrace the possibility of something new. Even as things started to feel a little more normal, a little more like I was moving forward, there were still moments when the past crept up on me. I would be lying if I said I didn't still have bad days. I didn't expect the grief to vanish, but some days felt heavier than others. It was like a shadow that followed me, reminding me of everything I had lost. Sophie could see it, of course. She wasn't blind to the fact that there were scars, and while she was patient, she didn't tiptoe around me either. She'd ask how I was doing, not in the typical, superficial way people do, but like she genuinely cared. And it was in those moments that I started to realize just how much I'd been bottling up. One night, after a particularly rough day at work, I opened up to her. We were sitting in her living room, just talking, when she asked if I wanted to share what had been on my mind. I hesitated, but then I started talking about Emily and Kara, the pain, the guilt, the constant feeling that I had failed them. Sophie listened. She didn't interrupt, didn't offer advice, just let me talk. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't carrying that weight alone. It didn't make everything magically better, but it felt like a step forward. I wasn't ready to let Sophie in completely, but I was slowly beginning to understand that I could let people help carry some of the burden, that I didn't have to carry everything by myself. Over time, I started to feel like I was building something new, not just with Sophie, but with myself. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of the past. I had to face the fact that I couldn't change what happened. I couldn't bring Emily or Kara back, no matter how much I wished I could. But that didn't mean I had to stay stuck in that sorrow forever. Sophie and I began to grow closer, and while I was still careful, still carrying my past with me, I realized that maybe it wasn't so bad to have someone by my side. She wasn't asking me to forget, she wasn't trying to replace them. She was just offering me the chance to be myself, scars and all. And I wasn't ready for anything serious yet, but I allowed myself to consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, I could find happiness again. There were days when the grief would resurface, when I would find myself thinking about Emily or Kara at the most unexpected moments. But I learned not to fight it. I didn't try to push those feelings away. I just let them exist, without letting them dictate how I lived. I started taking it one day at a time, trying not to overthink the future too much, and focusing on the present. Sophie was patient with me. Sometimes, we'd talk about the past, about how we both carried our own baggage. But she never pushed me to share more than I was ready to. She understood the delicate balance I was trying to find between honoring the past and living in the present. As time went on, I found myself starting to understand something important: life doesn't always give you what you want. Sometimes, things don't go the way you hope, no matter how hard you try. And that's okay. Because the truth is, even in the darkest moments, there are lessons to be learned. I learned that sometimes, love isn't enough to fix everything. Emily and Kara, both of them, needed more than I could offer. But that didn't mean I was a failure. I tried. I loved them with everything I had. And that's all anyone can do. I also learned that I can't save everyone, no matter how much I wish I could. People have to want to help themselves, and sometimes, even when they do, the world can still be too much to bear. I learned the importance of letting go, not of the people I loved, but of the idea that I could control everything. I can't change the past. I can't undo the mistakes, the failures, the things I regret. But I can choose to live in the present. I can choose to be better, to move forward, and to allow myself to heal one step at a time. And most importantly, I learned that it's okay to let people in. I don't have to go through life alone, even though for so long, I thought I did. Sophie, for all her patience and kindness, didn't try to take Emily or Kara's place. She just helped me be a better version of myself, even if that meant taking things slow, letting the past be a part of me without letting it define me. In the end, I don't have a perfect closure. There's no neat ending to this story. I'll always carry the memory of Emily and Kara with me, and there will be times when the pain resurfaces, but I've come to accept that that's part of life. It's not about forgetting, it's about learning to live with it. It's about recognizing that while we can't change the past, we can still shape our future. I don't know where I'm headed next. I don't have all the answers. But I do know this: I'm not the same person I was before. I've learned to be kinder to myself, to not judge myself so harshly. I've learned that life doesn't always make sense, and that's okay. I'm not here to have it all figured out, I'm just here to keep moving forward, one day at a time. To anyone who's reading this, if you're struggling with the same kind of loss or guilt, my advice to you is simple: don't be too hard on yourself. Love is messy. It doesn't always work out the way you want it to. And sometimes, the people you love aren't meant to stay forever. But that doesn't mean you didn't matter to them. That doesn't mean you didn't give them something valuable. So take care of yourself. Let yourself heal. And when you're ready, open up to the possibility of new beginnings, because life, even after loss, still has a lot to offer.